sponsored through one of the centers associated with the National Institutes of Health. So we're really excited about that. But then also there's some microbial research that's going to be happening. And then we also have some big pharmaceutical companies that are sending investigations on this mission. So again, it really does showcase the diversity that we have within the life science communities and the types of research that's possible on the space station.
Absolutely. We know that the U.S. National Lab is managing more than 15 payloads on this mission, which is a pretty big lift. So can you tell us, is there anything that sticks out to you?
What I would say that's really interesting about this mission is we're seeing a lot of investigations that are going up for the second or third time. And so it's the idea of iteration. So it's what we're able to see out of this is that they're learning something the first time they fly, but then now they're able to extrapolate that and take that into their next investigations. And maybe that leads to applied applications one day down the road for either benefiting life on Earth or setting the foundation for a robust and thriving low Earth orbit economy. And then on top of that, what I would say too is we have a lot of student investigations that are flying on this mission. And I think that that's one of the really exciting aspects of the National Laboratory is the fact that we are opening access to all types of researchers, whether you're a seasoned researcher or you're a young researcher. The notion that the space the foundation for a thriving low Earth orbit economy.
Patrick, that is fantastic, and we are so excited to see all of this science launched to space today. So let's take it back to Tori for another launch update. Tori?
Thanks, Jasmine. I'm sure the astronauts on board the space station are eagerly awaiting their delivery, and it looks like they won't have to wait much longer. With just about 8 minutes to go before launch, let's head back over to Joshua and Marie to take us through liftoff. Guys, how are we looking?
All right, thank you so much, Tori. Well, good news to report. We've heard very little chatter on the nets, and that's a good thing. No news is good news. It's been relatively quiet. Rocket is healthy. Again, as you said, well, we're inside 8 minutes. Now we're at T-minus 7 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah, you always get a little bit anxious with that much quiet. But again, like you said, it's a good thing.
Yes.
We have to remind ourselves of that. So we're excited to hear for this today. We're expecting to hear a few things coming up. One of them, a call for internal power. That would be the Dragon moving to internal power, meaning that it's primed and ready to live on its own apart from ground support equipment. We're also looking for the engine chill to begin in just a minute. Actually, in just about 15 seconds, we should hopefully hear that. That's the cooling of the Merlin 1D engines at the base of the first stage. That's to prepare them to receive cryogenic fuel. You don't want to run temperatures of negative 330 degrees below zero into lukewarm or atmospheric temperature engines.
So we just heard that call for the engine chill, so that came just inside of T-minus 7 minutes. In about T-minus 5 minutes, so less than 2 minutes from now, we should hear that the RP-1, again, that's that rocket-grade kerosene fueling, will be complete, and then the action will really start to pick up after that point. The transporter, erector, or strongback, which provides fluid, power, and communication to the rocket, that will kind of open its clamp and tilt back ever so slightly in preparation for liftoff. Again, this is the first cargo vehicle, Cargo Dragon, that will dock, not just dock, but dock autonomously to the International Space Station. And so tomorrow afternoon it will be approaching and then docking to the Node 2 Harmony Zenith port. That happens to be the same port that the Crew Dragon Resilience will relocate to after this Cargo Dragon departs in January. That will clear the Node 2 forward port for Crew 2 arrival in the spring. So if you remember that graphic that Leah showed while she was talking, it reminded me of a full parking lot this time at the space station. So that's a good thing. Lots of visiting vehicle traffic at the space station, and the Cargo Dragon just the next one to make a stop there.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. We've obviously mentioned that there's been almost a couple dozen missions with the Dragon.
On ne devrait pas avoir de problème.
They didn't dock, and for those that aren't familiar, that is a difference there. So just to kind of make that point.
Ça va être sympa de voir ça en plein jour. Il a l'air de faire beau en plus.
So talking through this vehicle and what it can do, it's a two-stage
Falcon
rocket,
9,
230 feet
impressionnant
tall, 12 feet
quand même.
in diameter. At the base of that rocket, you've got 9 Merlin 1D engines that will produce roughly 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. And then that's the first two-thirds of the rocket, and then the next segment is a very dark black interstage adapter, and that's connecting the first and second stage. that actually houses the Merlin vacuum engine, which will power the second stage to the correct orbit.
Je vois que vous êtes un petit peu nombreux. Ouais, on a démarré le live un peu tard, mais bon, on n'a rien manqué, c'est plus important.
There we go. There's the internal call, the internal power call officially. We also have hypersonic grid fins at the top of the first stage, as well as carbon fiber landing legs, which will help us successfully land this for hopefully the fourth time.
Mm-hmm. That will be really exciting to see. And we haven't heard it just yet, but if we do momentarily, I will just stop talking, so I may stop mid-sentence. But we expect to hear that the transporter erector, at least see that clamp beginning to open in preparation to tilt back before liftoff. So that should be happening.
Allez, on est à H-4 minutes. Ça approche, ça approche.
So while we're waiting there for that, we're on our way to space station. We've talked about that a good bit. The space station is actually in the over top of the Indian Ocean, headed on a west to east track, about to kind of round around the southern portion of Australia. So we're roughly on a 24-hour intercept pace to get there, but that's kind of a quick update for you.
And again, when Dragon docks, it will be tomorrow, December 7th at approximately 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And there you see the transporter erector. If you look to the right of your screen, it's tilting back ever so slightly. And that, again, is what happens in preparation for liftoff. And that tilt's continuing. And looks like that is complete, and just gorgeous skies surrounding the launch pad right now.
The thick clouds look as if they're staying offshore. We can't see directly above the rocket, which is the important part of the sky, but things are looking really good at the moment.
All right, we are just inside T-minus 3 minutes now. So in less than a minute, we should hear that the range is go, and Stage 2 locks close out.
Stage 1 locks is closed out for flight.
That was at stage 1, liquid oxygen closeout. So the first stage is fueled, and we should stop seeing that venting, which you can see on your screen there. If you see some of the condensation of the air forming around the rocket, that's just a matter of the cryogenic temperature of the vehicle, the fuel, mixing with the atmospheric weather. We do fuel as close to zero as possible. SpaceX fuels as close to zero as possible, and that's because they're using densified liquid oxygen. They're trying to pack literally as much as they can in there to maximize the performance of the vehicle to support the customer's needs.
We are closing in on T-minus 2 minutes now and expect to hear a couple of calls momentarily.
Stage 2 locks is closed out for flight.
And there's that Stage 2 locks closeout call.
Dragon is in auto idle.
And we're now at T-minus 1 minute 33 seconds and counting, and Falcon 9 should be in startup in less than 30 seconds.
Allez, on est à H-1 minute. On y arrive bientôt.
Falcon 9 can start up.
Dragon is in countdown.
And there it is, right on time. Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon is in countdown. So we are at T-minus 50 seconds and counting.
Allez, on va bientôt...
LD on countdown 1, go for launch.
There is that go for launch call we love to hear.
Pour la beauté, je vais vous retirer ça.
T-minus 38 seconds.
Et on va apprécier ça, on va admirer ça ensemble.
At T-minus 18, we will see
T-minus
that
30 seconds accounting.
sound suppression system begin to flood the pad just before liftoff.
Allez, c'est parti pour le décompte. Bon décollage à tous.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Appréciez bien.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 and upgraded Cargo Dragon, the first cargo capsule to dock to the International Space Station.
Et pour le moment, tout se passe
Stage
bien.
1 propulsion is nominal.
Salut Anto, comment tu vas? Ça fait plaisir de te voir. On a de la chance, il fait beau aujourd'hui. On peut tout regarder, tout admirer. Pas un brin de nuage.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Next cue.
Allez, tout se passe bien.
So there we go, a couple really important calls. Supersonic,
on est dans la
obviously,
zone de
exceeding the
max
speed
Q.
of sound, and then max Q, maximum aerodynamic pressure. That's from passing through an atmosphere that
Alors,
is still fairly
pour ceux
thick,
qui ne savent
while
pas, la
increasing
zone de
speed
max Q, en fait,
dramatically.
c'est
They
là où
throttle
la
back
fusée
slightly,
subit le plus
just to be able to make sure that the
le
vehicle
plus
can
de
handle those
perturbations.
loads, and then they'll
C'est là
accelerate
où
back
c'est le
up.
moment le plus critique,
Beautiful
on
shot
va
there on
dire,
screen.
du lancement.
You can see the plume coming
And
off.
back and flight chill started.
You can see the plume coming off of the base of that first stage where the 9 Merlin 1 engines
On va
are
bientôt
firing.
avoir la
We heard the
séparation
chill
du
call
premier
for
étage.
the vacuum engine to begin as well, preparing that to take the
Et
second
vous
stage to the
voyez
correct
que
orbit.
la flamme
Coming up
comment
here in about
dire,
30
se
seconds,
propage
we're
moins
going to
bien
hear
qu'au
and
décollage, et
see
c'est tout à fait
a
normal, c'est
rapid
par
succession
rapport
of things happening.
à
We're
l'air,
going to
à
hear a call for
l'atmosphère.
MECO. That's the booster, the main engine cutoff. It's completing its job of getting the spacecraft out of the atmosphere. We'll also follow that up with the first stage being separated, following a parabolic trajectory back towards the drone ship, and then very shortly after that will be the second stage engine start. That's that Merlin vacuum engine we talked about.
On va voir la séparation.
MECO 1.
Stage separation
Ça y
confirmed.
est, séparation du premier étage.
There you see a beautiful shot, the first stage falling away.
And back ignition confirmed.
Alors,
And that,
comme à son
that
habitude,
vac
le
ignition
premier
confirmed.
étage
There
va
you see it on screen.
atterrir sur
You
une
can see
barque
on the left side, you can kind
en
of see that
pleine
plume
mer.
coming out, and you'll see that engine
D'habitude,
bell increasingly get
je vais
more of
baisser un
that
peu le son
beautiful
des
orange color
commentateurs.
to it. That says we're just
D'habitude,
increasing the heat, picking up the
comment
pace.
dire, au moment de
The two camera
l'atterrissage, on
angles
a
you
des
see
petites
here are
perturbations
on
au
the
niveau
reverse sides of that
des
engine, so
GoPro,
you're
des
seeing a single
caméras
engine
qui
there,
filment
just
l'atterrissage.
from opposite
Pile au moment en fait où
directions.
ça atterrit,
As we continue on a nominal call, we heard a number of those
on a un petit
during
blanc.
the
Et on va voir si
uphill
on
climb
l'a là,
as
je
well.
pense pas. Enfin,
Beautiful launch today, just stunning. And again, all the calls we've heard have been nominal up to this point. So
Voilà.
all things looking great.
CRS21.
There you see on the left-hand side of your screen that first stage continuing on. Those hypersonic grid fins are now expanded. Those won't be usable
Bah,
until they
écoutez,
re-enter
c'est
the
plutôt
atmosphere.
cool.
Obviously,
Ça se
without the
passe bien.
atmosphere, that kind of directioning just isn't helpful. But once they enter the atmosphere, you'll see those begin to move, pitch and roll to be able to target that pinpoint landing on, of course, I Still Love You, the drone ship.
We've got less than 5 minutes till we
Trajectory
expect that to
nominal.
happen.
Stage 2 propulsion is nominal.
A couple more great nominal call-outs there.
Le premier
So
étage
just
qui devrait pas
previewing
tarder
what's
à
ahead,
arriver.
at about 6.5 minutes into flight, we're going to have the entry burn for the first stage headed towards that drone ship. Just
Acquisition of signal in Bermuda.
so that's just a communication call. You might hear more of those as we go through the process today. That's just a matter of there are ground stations across the world, literally, that help pick up and track the vehicle as we send telemetry data back to Earth for the mission, for the controllers to be able to monitor progress and ensure everything is proceeding nominally.
And really
Alors,
noteworthy
comment
that
vous avez trouvé le
booster,
décollage en
just
attendant
launched its
qu'on
fourth
voie les prochains
payload
événements?
into space. And one of those actually was more significant than a payload. Bob and Doug earlier this
Anto,
year,
t'as trouvé ça
that same
comment?
booster launched 2 humans into space. So really, really great, amazing accomplishment that the same booster has been reused a fourth
Trajectory
time.
nominal.
after we get that entry burn, a couple minutes later, we will have the second stage engine cutoff. That puts us at having a roughly 6-minute burn of the second stage, and then at almost the exact same instant, we're expecting the first stage landing to occur. And then a few minutes more, we'll see the separation of the Dragon from that second stage. We've seen some beautiful shots this morning in preparation for launch, so hopefully we'll get to bring you that live. Again, beautiful to see that Dragon just separate what feels like ever so gently at a cool 17,500 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, just a nice easy coast, right? You know what's really exciting to look back and realize.
Écoute, le prochain coup, si ça t'intéresse, tu pourras venir en vocal avec nous.
The first of 9 cargo resupply missions under this brand new contract. But it just so happens on this day in history, 22 years ago, began the assembly of the International Space Station.
Trajectory nominal.
Voilà, on va rester en live jusqu'à temps qu'on ait encore des images de la part de la NASA. Je pense quand même d'ici 10 minutes, un quart d'heure, on va voir, tant qu'on a des images. On rappelle également que la vitesse pour atteindre l'orbite est de 27 000 km/h. La vitesse.
They're having to move spacecraft around to open up ports for all the new visiting vehicles. So it's really amazing achievement, result of the cooperation between so many nations, government and industry together.
En même temps, tu me diras, la NASA, ils ont raison. Ils ont trouvé, comment dire, ils ont trouvé une entreprise qui fait, entre guillemets, le sale boulot à leur place, c'est-à-dire construire. Et ils le font plutôt bien, donc moi, comme ça, ouais, ils ont raison.
Yeah, thanks guys. So actually, if we could go back to the shot of the vehicle, we're actually just in the middle of our entry burn. That's where we ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines, so we're slowing down the first stage as we come into contact with the atmosphere.
Je vais augmenter le son si certains sont bilingues.
Lasting about 30 seconds. From here on out, you can actually see the attitude control thrusters there firing. That's those little plumes of white gas. And then the grid fins, those as we get more and more atmospheric pressure on the vehicle will guide the first stage towards our drone ship named, of course, I Still Love You. Taking a look at the data for the second stage, Dragon is running right down the middle of the projected orbit on the second stage, going for a roughly circular orbit, and then about T plus 11 minutes, 11 and a half minutes into flight, we'll expect to see Dragon separation. At this point, next event coming up, so on our screen right now is our shots of the second stage, but next event coming up for the first stage is Falcon 9's landing burn. That's about 30 seconds away. We'll ignite just a single center Merlin engine, then shortly after that deploy the landing legs, and then attempt a soft touchdown on our drone ship named, of course, I Still Love You, stationed out in the Atlantic. 10 seconds out to our landing burn on the first stage. Second stage continuing to look nominal.
Stage 1, landing burn startup.
Call it there from the prop team. So this burn expected to last about 25 seconds. In the middle of this, we'll also have shutdown of the second stage's MVAC engine.
Vous avez pu voir notamment
coming up just a few seconds from now.
Qui va commencer à rentrer dans l'atmosphère.
So landing leg deployment on the first stage, hopefully.
Et comme à son habitude, le retour sur la barge est buggé. Alors je pense que c'est dû au retour du premier étage qui peut
there is the fourth successful landing
en tout cas, c'est encore réussi
Falcon
pour
9.
SpaceX.
Exciting news as well. This is the 100th successful flight of Falcon 9. It's our 68th successful first stage. You also heard the call out there for nominal orbital insertion on the second stage. So that means Dragon is in the target orbit, still attached to our second stage. 100 successful landings of Falcon 9, fourth landing of this booster, which first flew Bob and Doug to space. 35th landing actually on this drone ship. Coming up next in about 2 minutes from now, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, we'll expect to see deployment of the Dragon spacecraft from the second stage. Now, if you're just joining us, we had an on-time liftoff at 11:17 a.m. Eastern Time, successfully recovered the first stage, which you can see on your screen. Dragon attached to the second stage in orbit around the planet. Second stage doing some checks right now, verifying that its attitude is appropriate for Dragon separation shortly after, all in all, very nominal missions so far, and just what we want to see. So with that, I think we can actually check in with the flight controllers at NASA's Johnson Space Center who have been monitoring the mission. Leah, how are things going over there?
Hi, Shiva. Thank you. An amazing launch, and things are going well over here, too. Flight controllers here are monitoring the International Space Station, and as I mentioned earlier, they will begin joint operations tomorrow once Cargo Dragon enters the approach ellipsoid, or an invisible sphere around the International Space Station that's 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers, and helps us monitor the approach and departure of visiting vehicles. We have seen second stage separation and obviously that first stage landing on the drone ship. Next major milestone we'll be looking for is for second stage cutoff, and then eventually second stage separation from the Cargo Dragon, when Cargo Dragon will begin flying free on its own.
Bon, bah écoutez, tout a l'air de bien se passer. Bah du coup, ouais, comme je t'ai dit, Anthony,
We'll be
si
looking
la
for
prochaine fois
separation to come in just about 30 seconds
tu veux
now.
participer, hein, tu seras le bienvenu.
Shortly thereafter, there will be some checkouts performed on the service section Draco thrusters on the vehicle. At the time of launch today, the International Space Station was flying 257 statute miles over the southern Indian Ocean west of Perth, Australia. As we mentioned earlier, we have a full house aboard the International Space Station of 7 people and 5 visiting vehicles that will turn into 6
si tu
tomorrow.
veux,
As Marie
à moins
mentioned,
qu'il y ait un autre
parking lot, home for the
lancement...
holidays.
Ah, attends.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Ça y est, l'étage est libéré. Oh, les images de fou quoi qu'on a. C'est un truc de malade quoi. Je disais, s'il n'y a rien de prévu en décembre ni en janvier, si je ne me trompe pas, c'est en février qu'on a le nouveau rover qui atterrit sur Mars. Donc si jamais en mars, je te redirai la date exactement, si tu veux venir commenter ou si tu veux venir participer au live du nouveau rover sur Mars, t'es le bienvenu. S'il n'y a pas d'autres lancements d'ici là, il va falloir que je regarde un peu tout ça, entre ce qu'on a le droit ou non. En tout cas, on a des superbes images. Alors, on peut pas avoir mieux comme qualité, hein. C'est des images qui viennent directement, de toute façon, vous le voyez, hein, c'est des images qui viennent directement de la NASA. On peut pas avoir meilleure qualité, mais franchement, c'est déjà énorme d'avoir de telles images aussi loin, quoi.
And we've heard confirmation of nose cone deploy and some good checkouts of those thrusters. Next up, we have a special guest, Jeff Arend, the Systems Engineering Integration Office Manager of the International Space Station, is standing by to tell us a little bit more about today's mission. Thanks so much for joining us, Jeff.
Bon, on va voir ce qu'il nous propose encore pour les 5 prochaines minutes, et puis je pense que on va finir là, je pense que c'est déjà bien. Allez, on va aller jusqu'aux 30 minutes de live. S'il n'y a rien d'autre important, on est encore en live pendant 6 minutes, s'il nous montre rien d'autre. Vous pouvez voir au fond du bureau le badge, enfin plutôt la grosse pancarte Falcon 1. C'était la première mission, si je ne me trompe pas, il y a 2 semaines, la vraie première mission habitée de SpaceX, parce que bon, celle qu'il y avait eu en avril-mai, je ne me souviens plus exactement du mois, avec les 2 astronautes, c'était un vrai vol, hein, mais c'était un vol test, tandis que là, quand vous voyez le Dragon avec le 1, c'était donc du coup le vol d'il y a 2 semaines.
They're equally safe vehicles for cargo and crew. One of the big differences between crew and cargo is there's no super Dracos on the cargo vehicle. There's no need for a launch escape system to protect the crew. So that's probably the biggest difference from an overall safety point of view. This vehicle is a little bit more capable from a powered locker point of view, which helps us a lot on science and research. We have 8 powered lockers going up, 12 coming home, or for the descent cargo, where the crewed vehicle only has 4 powered lockers on the way home. Obviously, a big piece is we have to remove the crew accommodations from the crew Dragon in order to accommodate the cargo, science, research, vehicle systems, all that kind of hardware in the cargo version of the vehicle. Let me see. You also asked about the rendezvous profile. So the rendezvous profile and proxops are essentially the same between the two vehicles. If independent of which port they go to, I would tell you they're the same. The big difference for
je vous ai mis les sous-titres en anglais, je ne sais pas si pour vous c'est mieux.
Version is going to our Zenith port, ISS Zenith port. So basically everything's the same through what I would call R-bar intercept to actually where it interfaces or intercepts the velocity vector on space station. At that point, the vehicle will be at about 220 meters out. Rather than stopping on the V-bar, this vehicle is just going to continue a 90-degree rotation above ISS, and so it'll be basically on the minus R-bar, about 200 meters out, and from there, the vehicle will translate to its final waypoint, which we call waypoint 2, which is 20 meters. About 200 meters out, and from there, the vehicle will translate to its final waypoint, which we call waypoint 2, which is 20 meters out. Do a hold there, and from there it'll proceed to docking.
Salut Spoon, comment tu vas?
Yes, it did come through.
Si tu fais retour en arrière sur le direct, tu pourras avoir le
docks,
lancement.
we will have 2 Dragons for the first time at adjacent ports on the International Space Station. How will NASA and SpaceX teams handle the operations of both vehicles from a timeline and communication loop standpoint?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It turns out that you called it dueling dragons. I don't know if I've actually heard that term. That's interesting, but we kind of had to practice. The teams had quite a bit of practice on what I would call dueling dragons, even before the launch. And that was really, as in preparations for the launch, there's a fair bit of communication between the SpaceX team at Hawthorne, the SpaceX team at KSC, of course, the other folks at KSC, and at times with ISS. So even before we've launched here,
comme je vous parlais de l'équipe Crew One qui est partie il y a 2 semaines, j'en profite également pour vous, comme vous pouvez le voir sur le schéma, il vous montre également la capsule Crew One qui est toujours du coup attachée à l'ISS. En haut à gauche. Et vous allez voir, et vous voyez au-dessus le point d'amarrage justement du cargo Dragon. Alors c'est la même capsule.
And every 30 days we do a health and status check on that vehicle. And so again, SpaceX and their team and the NASA team needs to kind of reconfigure their commanding and communication method with each of the vehicles such that it actually now talks to the Crew Dragon and not the Cargo Dragon. So they get some practice on that even before SpaceX 21 will show up to ISS. And as I kind of alluded to, the Cargo Dragon, the Crew Dragon, we basically put it in non-quiescent mode, into a quiescent mode when it's on orbit. So as soon as Cargo Dragon shows up, it basically gets the full attention of the crew and the flight control team. Much of its cargo needs to be removed within hours, if not days, and with all the science and research on board, pretty much it gets our undivided attention and the crew's undivided attention from a timeline perspective.
That's great. Always prepared. Love it. So we've discussed the upgrades to this vehicle and how it's very similar to Crew Dragon, carrying an increased amount of research, hardware, and other payloads. So what does that mean for the astronauts on station?
In a word, they're going to be like extremely busy. This vehicle is bringing almost a metric ton of research, science, and just all utilization items, about a metric ton worth of cargo, much of which needs to be exercised and within the 30-day mission, that 30 days or thereabouts, I can't remember exactly how many days we're planning for this vehicle.
Anthony qui me dit, allez, j'ai vu ce que je voulais voir, salut tout le monde, à la prochaine. Eh ben écoute, merci de ton passage Anthony, et à la prochaine.
They only have the 30 days or so to get everything off, everything exercised, all the research completed, and then they need to pack it, that exercise research, they need to pack that to come home so that we can quickly turn it around and get it to the labs on the ground here. So yeah, they're going to be super busy, I guess is what I would tell you.
And I'm sure they're looking forward to it. The Nanoracks Bishop airlock
Donc voilà,
will
comme
be
je
the first
précisais,
commercial
tant qu'on a
module
des
added to the
images, on va
station.
dire,
So can you discuss how this helps
de ce qui
open
reste de la
the
fusée,
station to
on va
more
maintenir le
customers
live.
and
Il y a
commercial
des
companies?
explications, n'empêche, qui sont
Yeah,
intéressantes.
that's a very good question as well. So you're right, the Nanoracks airlock, Bishop airlock, so it was conceived, designed, and built by Nanoracks to meet the needs of its customers. Nanoracks retains the ownership of this airlock, and so they are really driven to find paying customers to, in order to make the commercial module profitable. And these users will likely be commercial customers, and these business-to-business transactions, we're hoping, and I think they will increase the economic development of low Earth orbit. You know, in the past, the what we call the GEM airlock, or the Japanese Exposed Module airlock, sometimes has been kind of a bottleneck for us to do material science of the various satellites that we've been putting out. So this is a larger volume. It gives us the opportunity to do more deploys, a larger group at a time. It also provides some flexibility for ORUs that we can't bring inside. And so maybe we can stimulate business in that way as well. But to me, it's an exciting time, and we're just looking forward to having it on orbit.
Thanks so much, Jeff, for joining us today and sharing all of that information about the mission with us. We are still here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston. Flight controllers are monitoring the status of the station itself. And what you can look forward to tomorrow will be the arrival of Cargo Dragon to the International Space Station. So once it crosses that approach ellipsoid, teams here will begin joint operations with the SpaceX team in Hawthorne, California. NASA astronauts Victor Glover and Kate Rubins will be monitoring the approach and arrival of Cargo Dragon as it makes the first docking by a Cargo Dragon to the International Space Station. They will begin working then to get the hatch open on Cargo Dragon. That'll take a couple of hours because it includes pressurizing the vestibule, or the space between the hatches, on the International Space Station and on Cargo Dragon itself. But for right now, everything looking great with a beautiful launch today, and we're looking forward to the arrival tomorrow. So that's our wrap here in Houston, and back to you at KSC.
Thanks, Leah. Wow, what a beautiful launch and landing, and by far one of my favorite things on the Space Coast. I mean, the rumble never gets old. And Cargo Dragon
en tout
is
cas,
now
je
on
vous
its way
remercie
to
à
the
tous
International
d'avoir
Space
été
Station
présents
with the help of US companies like SpaceX
pour le
and
décollage.
our astronauts
Je
in
continue
space,
le
like
live
the
pour ceux
Expedition
que ça
64
intéresse.
crew.
Mais en tout cas, je tenais quand
NASA
même à vous
is using
remercier.
the station to conduct cutting-edge research and technology development in preparation to send the first woman and the next man to the moon in 2024. And then we'll use what we learned there to take the next giant leap, sending astronauts to Mars. You can tune in to docking coverage on NASA TV tomorrow, starting at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, with docking at 1:30 p.m. That's going to wrap up our coverage. I'm Tori McClendon, and from everyone here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center and our colleagues across the country, thank you so much for joining us. For more information on this mission, visit nasa.gov/station, or
Ça s'est bien passé, tout s'est bien
nasa.gov/SpaceX. We leave you now with another look at today's spectacular launch.
Ah, une
Happy
remonte
holidays,
un replay du
everyone,
décollage,
and
justement,
go
t'arrives au bon moment.
CRS21.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, puis c'est plus beau,
And liftoff of the Falcon 9 and upgraded cargo Dragon, the first cargo capsule to dock to the International Space Station.
Un décollage vraiment agréable.
Stage 1 propulsion is on.
Bah écoute, voilà, on a eu quelques personnes. Bah d'ailleurs, bon, on a maintenu une moyenne de 6 personnes, mais écoute, c'est surtout les membres de l'association. Voilà, c'est sympa. Et le premier étage est revenu sans encombre, mais comme à chaque fois, bon là on a eu un peu de chance, on a pu le voir quand même à peu près atterrir, mais il est revenu bien comme il faut sur sa barge. Donc voilà, le direct en ce qui concerne le décollage de CRS21 est terminé. Merci encore d'avoir été présent. Je vous laisse sur ces quelques images de la Terre et puis bah écoutez, je vous souhaite un bon dimanche